Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Friday music tutorials in which I answer questions that you have on the topics of music technology, film scoring, and general composition tips and tools. My name is Milica Peranosic, and I will post these videos once a week. And if you have questions that you want answered, please submit them via email, which you can get from my website. And you can also put your question in a comment section below, and I'll try to get to them in one of the upcoming videos. So let's get started. Tom had a question a couple of weeks ago. He wanted to talk about bitonality. When you guys ask a question that is very broad and general, I will probably just give you a couple of pointers that are my opinion on how you may want to direct your own research to get more information. These topics can easily take up hours, days, weeks, months, up to a semester of research. So my goal is to point you in the right direction. So when we talk about bitonality, couple of things. Please make sure that if you're going to use, and the same thing also works for polytonality, you just double it. You just multiply it instead of double it. The main thing, in my opinion, is to make sure that each one of your lines or layers of your bitonal work is very clearly tonal. Because what I'm hearing more often than not with composers who are really trying maybe a little bit too hard to sound contemporary. Notice that I do this again, so we'll talk about contemporary or not also in a minute, or maybe in another video. But I see oftentimes that composers, in order to avoid any association with traditional music, with tonality, with recognizable idioms, then they overdo too many steps on the way to that goal. So if you want to be bitonal, then make sure that you have two elements for bitonal, and that each is really tonal, instead of perhaps trying to make each one of them really chromatic and really full of dissonances, full of things that defy tonality, in fear that maybe they will sound too traditional on their own. See, when you do that, then when you put them together, you're more atonal than polytonal or bitonal. So start really simple and do each layer of your music in a very clear and simple tonal idiom. Even if you feel that you would want to maybe bring it up a notch than what you initially get as a result, you can gradually add those steps. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is step number 2. Make sure that you find the relationship between the two tonalities that is compelling to you. And this is how you can actually control the level of dissonance, the degree to which you are getting away from tonality, or tricking our ear to preventing us from really following a simple tonal language. So for example, if you have your first element in C major and you have your second element in F major, then it's probably going to sound pretty much just like one or the other. It's not going to sound so much like bitonal work, because there's not that many notes, and then there's not many chords that will be different in each one of these elements. So it will only clash on a B flat, really. And because of the surrounding chords and context, it's going to sound more like a mistake than like a moment of bitonality. On the other hand, if you have a C major and a C sharp major, then none of the chords will work together. So it will sound more like a chromatic piece with no tonal center whatsoever. So find the relationship that satisfies you. Number 3, think of your exploration in this exercise of bitonality, as well as many others that I might be mentioning in future videos, as an exploration, as an exercise. Maybe you'll give yourself time when you're exploring a new territory to, just get rid of a lot of things. You do it for practice, just like you do, your morning run. And not each one of them is your competing marathon run. The results will come with trying a lot of things and finding the ones that feels best for you. Because you see, when you do your compositional exercises as exercises without the attachment to them and without the ambition that they have to become your masterpiece that will be performed in Carnegie Hall or released on a major record label. So when you give yourself that freedom and that permission to mess up, you will create more freely. And that's when you'll probably stumble upon some great results. And then the last comment that I want to give to this question and suggestion for exploration is that you have to distance yourself a little bit from your work and try to imagine other people listening to it. I know it sounds obvious, but the thing is, you're going to spend hours working on a thing, and then it will be minutes for us to receive it. So the thought process that you put into it, the preparation that you put into it, the many versions that you tried and decided they worked or they didn't, and they needed improvement, and you tweak it so many times, and whatever you decide, to use makes, it has a huge impact on you because, and it's, obvious because you spend so much time figuring it out. But for us who hear it for the first time, that all may not be as clear as to you at all. So you need to exaggerate a little bit. So whatever you think is clear to you, repeat it. And then maybe even maybe repeat it or underline it maybe too many times. And then you can slightly back off if you on a second or third listening, it starts to bother you and you're really convinced it's too much, then maybe it is. But the listeners might not get it. Next question comes from Michael. Michael wanted to talk about the development in compositions. And this is not the question only Michael asked. I hear it a lot with people who have no problems coming up with beautiful material, but have a problem developing them and bringing them to another place and another level. Again, one of the questions that require a lot of trying, exploring, researching, listening, thinking, questioning, throwing things away. But I'm going to give you a couple of pointers. What constitutes a theme is not only the material itself, but also how it's delivered. So it's typical that a theme would have a sense of an arc and a sense of beginning, mid, and ending, a sense of statement, a sense of closure with a cadence. And then if there's more than one theme, the other ones will have that as well. Development happens when you step out of that completeness, and when you get into more of an exploratory path. So if you think of a theme as a line, you think of a development as a bunch of links in a chain. The theme has a clear intention and direction. The development is more deceivingly going all sorts of places and not necessarily stopping anywhere for too long. Now, this is not the only way you can develop things, and even if it was, we can talk about that aspect in relationship to rhythm, meter, harmony, melody, any musical parameter. But again, maybe focus on one to explore on a Monday, and two on a Tuesday, and do a week of exercises before you even commit that any of them will make it into your composition. So for today, maybe start with a development based on imitation, based on repetition, based on a sequence. So if you take your theme and cut it up into bits that you like, and you start by repeating those bits on different pitches by different instruments, there we go. You're going to have a sequence and imitation, and you're going to open up your harmonic language, because if you had it following a certain harmonic structure, but now you had it climbing up the stairs of a key that you started in, while maybe another voice is going a different direction, then you're going to have a different harmonic structure. And then the next day, you can try something else. Maybe you can work with length. So you can superimpose different lengths of different motifs on top of one another. And my third question that I'm answering today comes from Lauren. Lauren wanted to know, when entering a competition and was asked for a sample that's about 5 to 7 minutes long, can she in fact send a sample that's 10 minutes long or even 8 minutes long? And the answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Of course you can. You can do whatever you want. And on a rare occasion, it may not matter at all, or it can even benefit you. But by a rule, here I am again. And every now and then, you're going to feel so strongly about something that you will not care about any rules in the world. You'll just have to do it that way. If that's the case, don't listen to anybody. If you feel so strongly about your decision, you're probably right. When you don't feel so strongly and you feel like you need to get an advice from somebody, such as myself, that means that you're not quite sure. And that was the case with Lauren. And so I'm saying no. Don't really send them an example that's longer than what they specified in the guidelines. And here is why. I'm going to give you a few reasons. The first reason, which is quite possible, you might just be flat out disqualified. You totally can, and they will have a full right to do it. Sometimes people are more forgiving towards errors, and typically they will see it as an error. They're not going to see it as you making a conscious decision to not follow the rules. They're going to see it probably as you just haven't read the rules, the guidelines carefully enough, and therefore they may not want to spend any time on it. Or oftentimes they will be overwhelmed with submissions. And if they're overwhelmed with submissions, they're going to want to cut it in half or to a tenth. And how are they going to do that? By just disqualifying everything that does not fall within the guidelines. So that's the first reason. You may just be disqualified. And that, could be completely legitimate reason for anybody who made the decision to do so. Two, they may listen to your or consider your application, but you will have already had a little bit of a minus. They will not look at you and say, hey, this woman is so productive, so I'm so glad that she could not decide in 7 minutes, but she had to go with 10. They're not going to think that. They're going to think this woman didn't read the instructions, or this woman cannot make a decision, or this woman thinks too highly of herself, or even, okay, she's a little sloppy, let's give her a chance anyway. But the approach to your work might be tarnished a little bit even before they start listening. Number three, it could happen that it doesn't really make a difference. Rarely does it happen, in my opinion. But it could. And even if they do that, even if they decide, okay, it's fine, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, fine, let's not give it too much thought, they will still not listen to more than 7 minutes. And which 7 minutes are these? The closer to the beginning. So even if all of these were not, a problem, even if you knew that you will be given equal chance every time, even if you don't follow the guidelines, it is very good to practice. It's good to practice judging your own work from a perspective of another person, of a panel, of a listener who does not really know your work. And just practice making edits, making cuts, practice realizing which sections are most interesting, practice following all the rules, because ultimately it's the rule that you should apply to composing also. It's not how much you can write. It's how much you can detach yourself from and only keep the best. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that these suggestions were helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that alarm icon so that you get notified every time I upload a video. Have a great day.